The world is a scary and dark place.
And the news you watch can be a stressful way to start your day. Ooh, salad. Now, I'm on the hunt to find a humble human who is here to make the world a better place. Instead of focusing on all the bad things in the world, why not focus on the good? You know, like the selfless, the volunteers, the heroes without capes. See you there.
Hey, this is episode 2 with Heroes Without Capes. Today we are with the Morris family. I'm here with Roy, and this is Roy's wife, Heather. Heather is the mother of a special boy named James. What is James's diagnosis?
He is actually going to come and say
Oh,
hello.
this is perfect timing.
Right on cue.
Here he is.
He's going to come see Mummy.
Hi.
This is the star.
Hi, honey bun. Can I have a hug? Can I have a hug?
Can I have a hug? Can I have a hug? Thank you. Thank you for my hug.
I think he heard his name, that's why he came in.
Yeah, and he wants something
Should I
new.
do that?
Sure, something new on his TV. Daddy
Oh.
gonna help you?
So what's he doing right now?
He is watching his cartoons, which is his life.
Yeah.
And when he wants something different, he comes and gets us.
Nice. Does he have a hard time communicating, like verbally?
Yes.
Okay, so he has to, how does he communicate?
He comes and gets our hand and takes us in to show us. And right now, he's getting some tickles from Daddy because Daddy loves giving the tickles. But yeah, his diagnosis is, he has many. His main diagnosis is SYNGAP 1, which is a very rare...
SYNGAP?
SYNGAP, SYNGAP 1. SYNGAP 1. Very rare, one of those random things that happen, not from Roy, not from I, and it gives him most of his difficulties, including autism, nonverbal, low muscle tone. He has nystagmus in one eye, so he has like a shaky eye, which we think is also part of that.
Okay.
And yeah, the nonverbal part is probably one of his biggest challenges. He's also global development delay is common, and epilepsy is also common, which he has.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's a complicated little man.
Yeah. So that's a lot of the symptoms and diagnoses. I'm assuming that you didn't find all of those diagnoses out all at once. Did it kind of happen over time?
It did.
And how old was James when you started getting tests done?
So I think we started at about 6 months,
Yeah, around there, yeah.
and they thought it might be a brain tumor.
What was different about him at 6 months? Because James was the second child at
Second,
that
yeah.
point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So something was different?
So really development delays, but one significant thing was he had a vibrating eye,
Okay.
and the hospital thought that it might be like a brain tumor, because apparently both of your eyes oscillate, or only one does. None or both. For one to do it, they thought that there was a brain tumor on one side. On
Unusual,
the nerve.
yeah.
It's very unusual. So
That's scary.
yeah.
Yeah, we went initially locally just to see an eye doctor locally, and not really ready. They're not really great with little babies, but very odd to have the one. So then we got referred to BC Children's to go see the specialist there. So that was the first trip. But at that point, yeah, there was like nothing we had noticed different about James. He was a very chill little baby.
Yeah.
But yeah, the shakiness was like, okay, this is
Yeah.
unusual.
Right.
So went on our first trip to BC Children's, me and James. I think maybe about 8 months or something by the time we got there. and went to the eye clinic, and God, it was amazing. The equipment and the approach compared to like the unequipped place in the small town, they were just fantastic with him. You know, all these tricks to get him to look in the right places, and she very quickly said that it was nystagmus or spasmus nutans. So nystagmus is I think the shaky.
Okay.
But spasmus nutans, am I correct? That's the one? I think so. I think that's and so she was saying it's not unusual at all to have two, but to have one is unusual. So much so that every single time we went to her clinic, she brought in her students and whoever happened to be there to come and see this unusual situation.
So something was up and you...
Yeah, and on that very first trip, so we have no thought at all that there's any real problems with our baby. And that very first trip, first time to BC Children's, she literally called neurology and said, I'm going to send somebody over to you. And I was like, what's neurology? So like that exact time, that visit, she called neurology and sent us over because she thought we need to look into this.
And then he had a brain scan, I think?
Yeah, was that the time that we actually stayed?
I think so.
Yeah, so we ended up being checked in overnight for a CT scan.
At that point, what were you thinking and feeling? Were you a little bit worried?
Yeah, shocked,
what's
surprised.
going on? Yeah,
totally.
You didn't think it was that serious at that point?
No, I had no idea that there would be any. Yeah, totally surprised. Absolutely no idea that neurology would be involved. Certainly not that we'd be staying overnight in BC Children's. Like nothing with that. You know, just all of those is very odd. Never done anything like that before in our life before. So yeah, next day we had a CT scan.
Yeah.
And they weren't able to sedate him because there wasn't someone available or all these complications. So I actually, at that point, he was very easy to relax. So he was in the CT. He had his little sucky, like he still has. And I was actually singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And I actually managed to get him to go to sleep so they could do the CT because we couldn't get him, they couldn't give him the sedation for whatever reason. So yeah, we did that and nothing was there.
Do you sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star when Roy can't go to sleep?
No, it doesn't work.
No, okay. So your superpowers only work on James. Well, and the other two kids.
Still works on James. Still likes Twinkle, Twinkle.
Does he? Oh. Now that we're on the topic, what other things in James's life that bring him comfort?
What do you say?
No, go on.
I know the answer. I met him.
Like for James, cartoons and TV is like, he really is like 80% of life. High fixation, very intense. Now we know the autism portion of James, and that makes more sense. So he likes specific things, specific episodes of specific shows. And he will watch them over and over and over and over and over again. And a lot of his frustration is trying to get us to put on what he wants.
Yeah.
So we're hoping going forward, we're starting to teach him to make selections. He's not able to push buttons or anything with accuracy yet.
And there's like a communication pad I've seen with his support workers.
Yeah. So we're working on making choices.
And Dad, I saw he pointed to a photo of the school.
Yeah.
So James knows, hey, we're going to the car and we're going to go here.
Yeah.
So that's
we're trying to do a lot to help prepare him from what's coming and help communication because that's a big difficulty for him.
Right.
Yeah, but his shows, big part of happiness.
Yeah.
Definitely his home environment, his calm space. Mom and Dad, I think, give a lot of calm. But even when we're not here, if he has his environment and his sort of needs are met at home, he's pretty happy.
That's good.
Yeah, I think the comfort of home is an important thing to him.
Yeah.
When we moved, he didn't like us for a little while.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because his bedroom was different and he had to learn the house.
Yeah.
So he doesn't like change. One thing we do find is he likes a lot is like play fighting.
Yeah.
Like in the evening.
Wrestling.
Of course, he's a boy.
Wrestling and tickling.
Yeah.
And he goes to bed, he moans until someone goes in there and roughs him up a little bit. And
Yeah, I think we forget about just James as James. You know, you get caught up in, oh, there's all these things that are problems for James and why he's certain ways. And then, you know, we remember sometimes he is still just a little boy, you know. He's delayed in his development, but there's part of James that loves the playful and the tickle. Like, I don't think that's autism or whatever. He likes to play and have the fun, and that helps him calm down and relax for bed.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Daddy has always been the one that's been the playful wrestling. I'm more now. He's seeking it from me too. But yeah, he loves his cuddles.
Yeah.
Always has, aside from, you know, medication's been part of his life since he was 3.
yeah.
And with medication changes, you know, you can lose your kid. You can lose their personality. So we've had a few rough patches where he wouldn't cuddle us. He couldn't calm and relax, and that was
And that's
hard.
It's hard to see changes in him and him not being able to tell you about how he feels about those changes.
Yeah, medication is
So,
rough.
like, how I explain medication a lot is like when we change a medication, I kind of refer to it as like the top and the bottom. So the bottom is the unwanted behaviour or effects of his condition. So, for instance, seizures. So you need to treat the seizures and the bad behaviour, which I call is the bottom. But then you've got the child in the middle, and then at the top you've got the fun part where he laughs and he enjoys activities, etc. So what we find is that quite often the medication to deal with the bad stuff shaves stuff off the top as well. So that's kind of hard because he needs the medication, but then you've got like a quality of life. Is he just going through life not enjoying anything,
Right.
not interacting? So it's really hard to find a balance where you haven't taken his personality away from him, but you're treating the symptoms.
It sounds like an ADHD medication that kind of zaps the personality and the creativity.
honestly,
From my experience,
it's
it
like
helps, but it also
yeah.
it took away the artist side of. So I can't imagine. And how much medication is James on?
He's on a considerable amount.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
I think he has 4 different doses in the evening and 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
We keep a running list because you can't forget the medication. Because you have to build up the medication. If you just forget it straight away, he could actually have a massive seizure and die.
Oh, from the withdrawal.
From the withdrawal, yeah.
Right.
So we have to keep a running log. We have a list we tick when we do each medication.
Okay. That must be expensive. Is it covered or all of it's covered?
luckily it is for us.
Okay, good.
I don't know about other provinces in Canada, but BC has there's the pharmacare, which is kind of like the basic coverage for a lot. Oh, somebody has a requirement. Hello.
Hi, James.
Do you have a requirement? Hey. Hi, honey bun. You want something?
You want to go this time?
Yeah, I'll go this time.
Are you gonna sing?
Okay, you
No.
show me.
Twinkle, twinkle.
No.
Twinkle time.
I'm going to change the TV. Let's go change. You show me.
So yeah, I think BC in general they've quite a good drug program for helping him.
Oh, good.
But also, I work at BCLC, and like the insurance benefits you get from there really help with a lot of the stuff. Like we needed a special seat for him, and it's funded through the insurance through work.
Okay.
So that really helps.
So this is the part where you're asking for help from the community in a way, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like we had some stairs fitted at the back, so he can get in the garden.
Yeah.
Because of his operations, he had a big hip problem, and he was in hospital for I think it was 6 weeks.
Oh my
And
God.
he had to learn to walk again, and that was 1 year ago actually.
Wow.
So this time last year, probably to the day he was having his operation.
Really?
It was like the 1st of March.
Really?
2023. Yeah. So this marks like 1 year since
You would never, like, he was walking really...
Yeah. So he was in hospital, I think, for 6 weeks. It was a major hip and leg operation. And we had a hospital bed in the house for like 3 months. He couldn't walk or put any weight on, full body cast. So I think it was about July that came off and he could start to learn to walk again. And it's quite a thing because all his bones were reconstructed. So it's like learning to ride a bike, but then someone swaps the steering, so it's the other way. And then you have to relearn that again. It's not a familiar thing.
Right.
So the Lions Club in Kamloops, they paid for a set of half stairs. So they're just like twice as many stairs, but like half as deep with some railings. And so he can actually get out into the garden and have some fun.
And now that the snow's
And now the
pretty much
snow's
gone.
Yeah, so we're about to unleash him and find out if he can actually make it down the stairs or not.
Oh, he's gonna be so excited.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen him. I went to his appointment the other day, and yeah, he's a go-getter. Hey, you come back here, because he was just like he was just take off.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine how excited it would be to go outside.
I mean, as far as taking off, like James has zero danger awareness, and so as much as like we celebrate his spirit in that,
Yeah.
he will just take off. He'll walk if like we're frightened to leave the front door open or unlocked, because it could be -30 outside. He will just walk off, and he will have no danger awareness whatsoever.
Has that happened?
No, because we're very
Good.
But it's constantly on your mind,
Yeah.
right? The safety concerns, because some Singapians have actually died because they've managed to walk off or be
eloping is.
Is that a sign of SYNGAP? The just free spiritness?
And not the low awareness. I think
Yeah.
the low awareness.
So he would just walk across the road.
Yeah.
Right.
He would
Yeah.
he can't drink water.
Yeah.
So, like for him to comprehend, there's a car coming, it's just not there. So, that danger awareness probably is the biggest worry for us. As far
Yeah.
as
He'll always
his
have a
safety.
helper. He'll always
Yeah.
have someone.
But like a momentary lapse could be fatal for him. A lot of Singapians, they have a fascination with water.
Really?
Yeah.
How come?
Don't know. It's just one of
It's
those little
part of the
quirks.
thing.
Yeah.
They just love playing with water.
Like obsessively so.
Yeah. So.
Does he swim? Does he ever go in the
We
water?
take him swimming a lot, and
He does
absolutely
like
loves
it. Yeah.
Oh.
He has a short attention span for it.
Yeah.
Well, for anything except TV.
So do you kind of hold him? And,
Yes.
And he's got like a life
Yes.
jacket or water wings, or
Yes.
Yeah, he has a full life jacket.
Yeah.
And someone's with him 100% of the time.
He doesn't really think to kick or anything like
just
that.
floating.
yeah,
and,
the feeling of it.
yeah.
And like bath time, we went through a really bad period. Like we had a medication change. Honestly, it changes your entire life when you have to change meds, because it's like total unknown.
Not just one pill. It was like a bunch of pills at once.
It was the main one that we had to change.
And what's the main pill? What does that take care of?
So when we started, it was purely epilepsy.
Yeah, epilepsy.
Okay.
So when we realized he was having seizures, we started on valproic acid, and that was for epilepsy. And the realization that you even have to take medication regularly was a surprise and disappointment.
There came a point that the level of medication that he needed to control the seizures was too much for his body. So we had to change.
Yeah, so he was on it very happily. You know, all of these stages, we learn so much, and then you think everything, you've got things figured out, and then it's always going to change because the growth, the changing, and the epilepsy changes, you know, all these things change. So for a year or two, very happily on one medication, valproic acid, controlling seizures, and we didn't realize at the time having a very positive behavioral effect as well. Because we learned after we came off it, it was doing a lot for him in other behavioral ways. Because like the SYNGAP is quite a spectrum, like autism, the range of children now from Facebook and meeting all these families, you know, is it like 1,300 in the world now?
Yeah.
About 1,300 when we started, 4 or 5 or something, 100 in the world when we got diagnosed.
I think when we started, there was less than 10 in the whole of Canada.
Can we go back to, we started off saying, talking about the diagnosis. So the eye movement was the concern, and then you spent overnight.
Yes.
When did this SYNGAP diagnosis come into play?
So, I mean, we were relieved initially when we found out it wasn't a brain tumour.
Yeah.
Because, like, you don't want it to be a brain tumour.
No.
And then because of that, they were looking at other things. They couldn't find anything. And they said that it may be a 1 in a million genetic mutation. So now we were trying to actually get a DNA test.
1 in a million?
Mm-hmm. So what it actually worked out to, like, I don't know, 1 in 50 million.
What?
At the time when he was diagnosed, I forget the exact figures, but it was massively high.
But the neurologist was right. After they'd exhausted all of their normal testing, that was her gut feeling, that it was going to be one of these rare genetic things.
Did your heart kind of sink at that point, or
I can't imagine? I was kind of confused, really, because I didn't really know much about like what does rare genetic thing mean. Like I don't know. We were just kind of like wanting to know what was going on.
Well, a friend of ours said that they've heard of a thing called Angelman syndrome.
Angelman?
Angelman syndrome.
Syndrome.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that James has a lot of the symptoms that they have. So we were heavily looking into that, and it is very similar, but it didn't quite fit. And then when we got the diagnosis of SYNGAP, the neurologist had never heard of it. They had to look it up, and there was nobody that knew anything about it.
It was quite like difficult, because before the diagnosis, like, Roy is a problem solver, you know, and an information finder. So he would like drive himself crazy trying to figure out what it might be. And like,
when a doctor has to search, like,
but basically for over a year, I would say, we were trying to get on a study where we could get his DNA sequenced and do the whole exome sequencing, because it costs thousands and thousands to do it privately. So BC Children's were trying to get him on a study so that it would be funded, but you have to fit in all of the components of the study. So we almost got in one, and then we didn't get in that one. So about a year or something of just waiting. And we did an MRI in the process of that too, because the CT looked for like anything big and obvious. So they actually admitted us into the hospital, was it about a year or two then? I don't remember now, to get an MRI faster, because the MRI wait list was so long. They were like, the only way to make it a priority is to actually admit you, and then you're like literally waiting here for the MRI. You will have to get the MRI. So Jay and I hung out for a week. I think he was about a year or so at that point. Just hanging out, waiting for our turn. And
still an easy baby?
Yes. Super easy, chill little dude. The hospital, we were in like multi-rooms. I was on a mattress on the floor. It was like not a glamorous situation, but we were just waiting. So we got our MRI, and that was the first time he was given full general anesthetic, I think.
That would have been scary as a mom.
That was scary. And and then nothing found again. So we finally got on a study. Roy and I did blood tests, James did blood tests, and then again, like 6 months or more waiting. Well, some went to Europe, some went to the States, some stayed in Canada, and all this sequencing was done on the DNA.
So I think for me, like, finding that information out is really hard, because when you have an error in your DNA, that's it. There's no cure, there's no fix. You are going in this direction, and like when you compare it to like a brain tumor, as much as you don't want it to be a brain tumor, when they said it wasn't, it's like, yay, good news. Potentially that's fixable.
A brain tumor,
right? As dangerous as it can be. potentially it's fixable. This when we found out is like, this is not fixable. There's no way that any treatment of any description is possible.
Yeah, a real double-edged sword.
Yeah. So although it's not life-threatening, it's permanent. It's like for the rest of that's how it comes across in the beginning. Is for the rest of his life, there's nothing that can be done. We don't know anything. And for me, when we used to go for visits at BC Children's, like speaking to the neurologist, they don't have. James was the only patient in British Columbia, so they have no time to research for one patient, right? Like if you've got 1,000 patients with an issue, then they have resources to investigate that. So I found it quite frustrating that, like, I would often go to the appointments, the most knowledgeable person, because obviously I have time to research it. So for me, that's
make time,
right?
You
but I understand that the doctor can't spend a week of studying for one patient. I understand that, right?
Yeah,
So, like, looking, I'm a volunteer for a charity, the SYNGAP Research Fund, and they spend 100% of the money on researching SYNGAP. And
is that local?
So that's actually based in USA.
Okay.
The headquarters are in USA.
Yeah.
It's a global organisation, so they have people in Canada, Europe, Brazil, all over the world.
Parents, all volunteer.
Yeah.
Lawyers,
100%
doctors,
volunteer.
all these parents volunteer.
And what's the name of that again?
A SYNGAP Research Fund.
Okay.
So, so we volunteer to help, and everybody doing anything for the charity, 100% is volunteer work. Nobody gets paid; it's a volunteer position.
In which ways do you help the charity?
So I do a lot of the editing of the videos for SYNGAP. I do the IT for them as well. So anything computer.
Okay, so you're just transferring like your real life job to help them. Makes sense.
The biggest
And
thing
that's like what all the parents do. And you know, Roy just was like right in there from the get go. I guess I probably didn't feel like I was very useful or that I had time, but Roy was like years now, and it's amazing that it's all parents and parents started, and they're actually like funding like actual research, like, you know, things are happening. And I think that's for Roy, that's where he holds his that's what he focuses on.
It's crazy that
positive.
You're just thrown into this life where you have to become your own, almost like detective or your own researcher. Because
well, when we got the actual results, so like, you know, the 6 months or 8 months waiting for the whole exome sequencing, and so much paperwork that we signed and releases, and you know, because they're looking at our DNA as well, and so then they finally say we found something. So we did like tele-link at the hospital. So we're sitting in a little room in the hospital talking over, you know, the video link to our geneticist and the person that was like running the study. And they're like, yeah, we found this, and it's on the SYNGAP gene, and you know, they start giving us all this information, and we're like, what does that mean? And to be honest, it was pretty like, there was not any real, I don't know, that day we were pretty down. Like, it was like, yeah, we found something, and this is it, and it's genetic, and we don't know much. We found this on the internet. If you want to like contact this organization.
it's like they help, but you still have to
Yeah,
find out more.
You know, and to be honest, going forward after that, like the hospital is there to help with James's day-to-day, you know, symptoms, but that's it, it's symptom management. So it was a huge change of like, what's wrong with James and how do we fix it, to, oh, James has this really rare random thing that just happened when he was created, not from us, nothing we did. And now, yeah, he has to live with it for his life. And
But
yeah.
so does the whole family.
Yeah.
How does that affect the family? Because James is a middle child. Mm-hmm. He's got a little brother and an older sister. Mm-hmm. So how does that dynamic, how does this dynamic work on a day-to-day basis?
So I think for us, we kind of just accept it. Like anything that your children need, obviously you would do anyway, right? You're the carer for your children. So the impact for us is, I don't really think about the impact for me personally that much. The impact for our other children is my main concern. So for instance, going away on holiday, we've actually been asked to leave a hotel before now because James has been upset and
In the middle of the night
vocalises.
and loud and
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like you can't quieten him down if he it's a new place, he's not familiar, you know, he can get really upset. So so it's hard on the other two children, and that's where my feelings really are, because they lose part of their childhood, whereas, like, as an example, I pick the kids up from school, and we have a set of shops just across the road, and so Leah will go over the shops, but when we're home with James and Heather's at work, Leah can't go out, because I can't, if she had an accident or needed me, I can't just bolt out the door because of the situation.
So yeah, she's more restricted,
Yeah, so like if she says, oh, I want to go out somewhere.
But she is old enough to start, having sleepovers. And,
Yeah. And I think all of that's been delayed as well, just because, you know, the house is a little more difficult sometimes to welcome people into because, James can be loud and...
it's a warm home. Like, I feel welcome here. It does have a welcoming feeling. Like, I hope you know that. It's not,
I think, I guess we're getting more comfortable with it too. Like, and as I say, James has changed so much, you know, from like a 2-year-old, super easy breezy, even 3-year-old, he was able to drink at that point. He was picking up his milk, drinking his own milk. He was eating more foods. We didn't have so many like sensory kind of things going on yet. And then maybe around 4, he started to walk because he walked late as well because of low muscle tone. And then medication changes when we went through that big change. So he couldn't tolerate that medication anymore. It was, I think, honestly, a month. It seems extreme when I think back to it, but it was like a month where he didn't like come out of his bedroom. And normally he would be out all the time, very busy. But his body just crashed, and like we weaned off, and then we had to start a new one for epilepsy. But it was a huge change in the house. And then we had behavioral stuff, which we had never had before. And that for a family is hard.
Yes.
Very hard because mom and dad are very stressed.
Well, the helpers
and worried.
need help.
Yeah.
I think sleep is a big one as well. That maybe that impacts us as parents, and then you, like, the other kids, they kind of get, maybe, I'm not going to say the brunt end of things, but like well-rested parents are a good thing, right? And parents that have had little sleep are a bad thing. And part of his condition is a big sleep disorder. So on the average night, we would probably be up 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, that's totally normal.
Yeah.
It's abnormal when he sleeps through, and he is on a lot of medication to sleep.
Oh, wow.
A lot. When we were at the hospital for his hip surgery a year ago, which was a massive surgery on both hips.
Why did he need hip surgery?
He has hip dysplasia as well, probably from the low muscle tone hypotonia.
I think it's a combination, but one of the things is hip dysplasia is where the hip bones aren't connected, they're not in place, they're actually loose and floating around.
Kind of like a baby? I think you explained it to me before.
Yeah, in a way, the joint is not inside.
The ball and socket, yeah.
The socket is not connected properly. It's floating around.
Okay.
So a part of why I think it happens is because when a child is, say, 1 year old, they're starting to walk, and the weight on the hips connects it. Whereas if you don't do that, you there's nothing to keep that in place.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So him starting to walk at the age of 4, he had like an extra 3 years where there was no weight pushed in there. The other thing he has is hypermobility. So like tendons and ligaments, they have more stretch. So like you could never pick him up by his arms, for instance. You would just pull his arms off because he wouldn't tense, and there's no.
Is he prone to getting like dislocated shoulders? And...
Not yet.
But he would,
We're very careful.
Yeah.
We're very careful.
Yeah.
But like when he stands, his ankles they go out, so he kind of stands on the bottom of his leg bone rather than his foot, because there's so much flexibility in his ankles, so he has AFOs to correct that.
Right.
He was pretty little, I think, when children said just randomly, "Have you had his hips checked?" I'm like, no, it's like probably 2 or 3. And obviously they can see things, so we had the hip x-ray, and then they were like, yeah, he has bilateral hip dysplasia, which is both hips, one is worse than the other. And so I think we must have been 2 or 3 at that point. So since then, every 6 months, x-rays to watch it, and it's just been, you know, slowly getting worse and worse and worse. So we've been followed by an orthopedic surgeon at BC Children's, knowing that eventually an operation would need to come. But we thought it would be like 9 or 10 pre-puberty, but they said as bigger the bones can get, the better. And then, yeah, it just got worse and worse and worse till it was like 80% or something ridiculous out.
And so he had to get hip.
Yeah, so he was in the OR for over 5 hours. It was so long. And they like to do both if they think they're going to need to do the second one. Well, Dr. Mulpuri does. Not all hip surgeons do that.
Both what?
Both hips at the same time.
Oh, okay.
Because so like one was super out and one was not good. So it would have had to be done at some point. But while one is healing and the other's healing and you kind of get going together, that's better. So yeah, the poor little dude had both done.
And that was a year ago?
Yeah, last March 1st, yeah.
That's
literally a year ago.
I mean,
yesterday, yeah.
Yeah, 1 year ago.
Yeah. When we were in the hospital for that, it was a very good time to play around with medications a bit because we have doctors there and like at home it's harder. So we had prepped them so much for our worries and concerns about James not understanding why he's there, what's happened, why he can't move, and the behaviors that would likely come with that. Like we were like, there's no way our kid can sit in a bed for a month. Like that's torture.
And that's something you have to, you do quite a bit every time you go to a new clinic or new appointment. You do feel the need to explain how he is and why he is. Why do you feel the need to explain? I noticed he has like a thing on his seatbelt.
Oh yeah, the little
right?
Yeah.
But what's the purpose for that exactly?
So like if we had a car crash and say I was unconscious, and someone was getting him out of the car, you see a child in a car seat. I mean, he's 8 now, so you would expect to talk to that child, like say, "I'm going to undo you" or something. But he doesn't understand any of that. So like a couple of things like I can't understand you, and just a couple of immediate things that you should know.
Do you know what it says? Can you list the...
I'm nonverbal.
Nonverbal.
I can't understand you. And I think something about mobility as well. So they know he can't walk. And I think one other thing on there as well, just the basics so that they understand that James is not a standard child.
Yeah.
Because I guess that's our fear always. Like we are obviously here for him, but he's not like your everyday kid. And yeah, people just don't understand. And so you have to explain. And there's a lot to explain.
And is that important to you to have people understand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hugely.
Yeah.
Hugely. For him and for his brother and sister.
What would you like them to understand exactly in your own words?
I guess that it's not his fault and he can't control it. And he's doing the absolute best he can with what he has. Because a lot of people see bad behavior.
Yeah.
And they don't get it.
I don't see bad behavior.
Well, no, but you're a very understanding person. And not everybody is that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think until you maybe are around kids or people or have your own that have different needs and disabilities. You just don't come across it, you don't understand.
Yeah. So, as parents, like, you have so much on your plate. You're parents of 3 kids. I mean, that's a lot on its own. But to have a kid with a rare disease is such an added weight. How do you deal with the extra pressure with your day-to-day life, and what keeps you going?
I mean, I just bury it now. I try not to think about the future. But Roy,
Take it day by day.
I do. That's the best way. I mean, sometimes my brain goes there, but I just do day by day. But Roy is like hugely focused on the science.
Yeah, so I'm opposite to day.
Yeah.
You think, okay.
I have a plan of a date in the future where something's going to happen, and then I aim towards that.
Okay, I like that too.
So for me, like being a volunteer for the SYNGAP Research Fund, they've actually got, there's like 3 different stages of treatment, starting from a drug that you would take orally, but that's not a great solution because it goes through your liver and all sorts. So that's like the least favourable solution, but the closest in time. And then longer term, there would be a drug, and it's an ASO, and that gets delivered directly into the spine like an epidural, and then from the spinal fluid it goes into the brain. And what that will do is that will increase the protein that he's only got half of, which is the SYNGAP protein. So that would be like every 3 to 4 months, but like quite a major thing. And then
spine.
when we looking at like 2 or 3 years for that sort of treatment, and then ultimately there's gene editing like CRISPR, and we're hoping that that's maybe 5 years away, and that will actually correct the DNA that's wrong, and that's a complete cure. So I hope that's my long-term aim. The problem is that it needs to be done quickly, and it needs to be brought as close in time as possible, because no one's sure the damage that's occurred in his brain, if you fix that, will it fix it retrospectively, or will the new brain that grows be okay? So nobody really has answers to these questions. And just to explain very briefly about how the easiest way to understand James is, you have like 2 nerve cells in the brain, and basically when they connect, an electrical signal runs through the nerves, and it's like a long wire, for instance. Well, the SYNGAP protein, instead of the wire being like a continuous wire, the protein that's missing makes the nerves like spray open, so the connections aren't as thorough as they should be. So and this is global to the whole brain, so that kind of explains how difficult it is for James to think or do absolutely anything, because it's everywhere in his brain. All of the nerve cells don't line up, they don't carry the electricity through.
Is it kind of like having, I'm thinking of like a keyboard, but the keys are on the wrong letters?
That would be a really good way of yeah. That would be a good...
Okay.
And when you think of
that would be so frustrating to just try to live day-to-day life with
and
that
I was
sort of
saying to
thing.
Kelsey the other day that he has napped every day of his life, and he continues to do so, literally in a busy classroom at school in his chair. And part of it is probably the low muscle tone, but a lot of it is just exhaustion from just doing the day.
Yeah.
He just wears himself out.
Yeah. He has to work extra hard just to keep up, for sure.
Yeah, it's like a signal to noise thing. There's so much noise from all of these extra sparks of electricity going everywhere in his brain. The actual spark that he wants is so quiet, it's so hard for him to get that connection working properly. So part of that is repetition. So we find that if you repeat stuff a lot, then he'll eventually get it. And I think that's because he learns to tune out all of the extra sparks of.
He recognizes
gone
the
elsewhere.
signal, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he might look at the wall and taste oranges. You have no idea where the electrical signal is going in his brain. So yeah, it must be quite a weird. He must interpret the world in a really weird way.
Yeah.
Which is why sometimes we think he gets so intensely excited and upset by his cartoons. Like Roy was saying,
His
like,
cartoons upset him too?
yeah, he cries sometimes.
Oh, he gets really
emotionally upset. But Roy was like, he might actually think that like they're like part of his world, like they're like it's like real, because he's like extremely invested and involved in them. Like he like kisses the screen sometimes. Like like there's something about that. It's more than just an addiction. Like it's like, it's his life.
I think Shrek is his best friend.
Yeah, there's something there about it that is super captivating. And like when real children come on the screen, he has nothing to do with it. Like, autism, that's a big thing. There's no like connection there that there would be with other children and people. You just don't have that connection.
Right. But animals.
And the cartoon faces and people is different for him. Yeah, like the kids on Sesame Street, he has zero interest in. It's sad, but it just, there's no understanding there. There's nothing there.
The opposite is true of
Grover and Elmo, like, it's
like
part of James's world.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, so there's something interesting going on there. But the idea of the ASOs, something that would give him the protein he's missing, and for his brain to actually work properly. I mean, we'll have the delay of what he didn't learn, but it's unbelievable to imagine.
Are you like on a list to get this?
Not yet, but Roy is heavily connected to all of the steps that are coming.
Okay.
So when the list is available, we obviously need to ask a ton of questions about what could happen, what might happen, what do we know, what don't we know. Like there's a lot of scary stuff there, but there's a lot of exciting possibilities.
I mean, there's obviously an experimental period, but to increase the level of SYNGAP in James and all of the other SYNGAPians is the goal. So a drug that does that will work on all of the SYNGAPians. So it's not like a personal medicine. It's a medicine that will treat any SYNGAP patient. The CRISPR thing, that is absolutely personal, because the mutations for SYNGAP are different in each child. So there wouldn't be a general CRISPR medicine that would fix this. Every single medication of CRISPR, for instance, would be unique to that person.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where we hope. I mean, in our day-to-day, we are learning as parents to give Max and Leah more of our time and not feel guilty. That's a big one for me, not feel guilty for not including James in everything, because for many, many, many years, always still went through the process of what you would do with your neurotypical kid because he's part of our family. You don't want to exclude him. And then finally realizing after watching other families learn that James doesn't want to be part of all the same things that he would do if he was neurotypical. And trying to make it work doesn't work. So now, like on Christmas morning, that's a big one, because presents mean nothing, doesn't understand the concept, doesn't care, is actually quite offended when you try and
right, because it's
like, go away from me.
It's not his routine.
Right, so.
But it's important to Max and Leah.
It is. And so, James is, Santa remembers James, of course, and he brings things for him that he might like.
Wait,
But
Santa comes to your house?
He does, and he remembers James, even though he knows James doesn't really care too much about him. But as a family, we now don't really make James open his stocking, and Max and Leah help him. And sometimes we show James things, and like he got a Big Bird this year because he's been really into Sesame Street. And when he looked at an actual big bird, he did acknowledge, and he looked at it and he was a bit confused. But as a family, we don't like drag him out.
No.
Say, here's your stocking. You know, he does his thing.
You meet him to
Yes.
his point.
And I have learned, and Roy is better at the balance. I have more of the mum guilt, perhaps, but we learn as we go.
The thing with James is, like, if he wants something, like his TV turned over, he'll come and get me, and he'll indicate that he wants his TV turned over, and then he'll push me away.
Yeah.
I just want the
I am
TV
finished
turned
with
over.
your services. You may go now.
So that level of honesty is just incredible.
Yeah.
Because if he wants to interact with you, like if he puts his arms out for a cuddle, 100%, there is no ulterior motive for that. He genuinely wants that cuddle. So,
Yeah.
So that honesty is just so lovely.
Yeah.
And like long term, growing up with siblings, again, when we had Max, I was nervous of how we would all cope. But in hindsight, having a sibling on either side of him to sort of grow with him is a really lovely thing.
Yeah.
For him and for them.
Yeah.
You know, one sibling I think might be difficult because you feel responsible as you get older. James has two, and Max is at the age still where, you know, his brother is kind of like in his space. You know, he's learning as he goes. Leah is incredibly compassionate and like really does genuinely love him. She actually fights me to go and like help him when he's distressed. And I'm like, no, I want to cuddle him. And she's like, no, let me go.
Yeah. No, you guys all have big hearts in this family.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
James has the best family. You know.
I think he's
really lucky.
we
have
feel
you
lucky
guys.
that we are able to be mom and dad and be that fight for him. We're learning to advocate, and yeah, it's a constant process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Caution! Eclectic!